see if that works. Okay, so steps, 5 keys for getting high quality recommendations. All right, key number 1, stop calling them recommendations. Stop calling them recommendations, stop calling them referrals. Okay, what you want to start calling it, you guys know I've taught this recently, introductions. Okay, get in a mindset of not calling it leads, not calling it referrals, calling them introductions. Okay, if you could actually learn how to change the verbiage, and in fact that's my goal, is to change the way we say that around North Orange County and around Southland, just to use the word introductions. You guys have seen the video of this one guy talking about introductions. That's key. So at the very beginning, he plants that seed where it says, he says, I'm not here to, my number 1 reason for being here is not to sell you something, although I love this product, I think it's great, and a lot of people are getting it. That would help me toward my scholarships and everything. But my goal is to do 75 appointments by the end of the year, or 27 more appointments by the end of this month, or whatever the goal is by the end of this year. And the only way I can do that is through quality introductions. Okay, just like Mrs. Smith recommended me to you. She introduced me to you, not recommended. She introduced me to you. And for not everybody that I get introduced to has the time or wants to sit down for an appointment, and that's totally okay. But typically it takes at least 5, usually about 10 introductions for me to get 1 appointment. So I need to get 75 appointments done this semester, and so that means I need about 750 introductions in order to make sure I can get 75 appointments. If I get 75, I'll be able to reach my target, and that'll almost assure me that scholarship that I'm working to hit. Okay, so using the term introductions the whole time, everywhere the word leads or referrals or whatever, just change it to introductions. Okay, that's number 1. Second thing is build a reputation of awesomeness. Okay, is build a reputation of awesomeness with your customers and just in life in general. Right, people of high character. This is going to kind of flow into the next point, but people of high character get introduced without even trying. Okay, people who have a reputation of awesomeness, they get introduced all the time, right? And think about this, it's karma. If you treat your customer with such profound respect and interest, right, and have such a tight rapport with people, you won't even have to ask them really very hard for introductions. They're going to want to introduce you to people. Okay, think about when you've met somebody who's awesome, and another person that's awesome, and they have something in common perhaps, and you just can't wait to introduce them. Okay, which point 2 and point 3 are going to flow together. And point 3 is people love to give introductions between good people. Okay, people love to introduce good people, right? And I'll give you an example of this weekend. I went to a celebration, a party on Saturday afternoon for a friend of mine who I know from my Rotary Club. She just set the land speed record for riding a bicycle. All right. Now, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but she rode 183.9 miles an hour on a bicycle. Okay. Let me say that again. 183 miles an hour, 183.9. Okay. If you want to see the story in Bicycle Magazine, feel free to send me a message and I'll send you this thing, and you can see this video. Anyway, her name is Denise. Used to be Denise Mueller. She just got married, and she's not like 25 or 30 years old. She's, in fact, I don't want to say how old she is, but because I don't know exactly. But her story is unbelievable. Okay. Anyway, and her story is not about the way she wants to tell her story. It's not about breaking the land speed record. And by the way, it's the land speed record for male or female. Okay, for both. It's not like the female record. It's the all-time record. And she talks about why she did it was because of some people that she saw several years before doing something. Some women doing something out of the ordinary, and that inspired her to get back on her bicycle and get back into riding. Because she was as a very young person, teens and I guess early 20s, she was a cyclist, and she was a champion, kind of like a world-class cyclist. Anyway, and so she's got this amazing story behind her. And so she was talking about, she was on the news tonight, CBS News here locally, and I just figured, I know people that could help her tell her story. People like Hal Elrod and John Vroman and John Berghoff, people who do these podcasts, right? And so I reached out to Hal. I sent him a little article. I said, "Hey, Hal, how'd you like to introduce this or interview this person on your podcast?" He says, "Man, looks amazing. Absolutely." I told Denise, "Hey, Denise, I reached out to my friend Hal. Here's his website. Here's some things about him. If you're interested in an introduction, let me know." And both of them are like so fired up that I'm going to introduce them tomorrow. Okay, but I'm excited to introduce them, right? Because these people both have a reputation of awesomeness. So how do you create a reputation of awesomeness? You be interested in your customer. Okay. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. I hope I'm not missing something. You have to be over interested in your customer. Be genuinely curious. I'm convinced that one of the reasons that I did really well as a Cutco rep is because I'm naturally curious. And I don't think I was naturally curious. I kind of got more curious in this job. And I'd go to someone's house, and before doing the demo, of course, you're supposed to quote build rapport, right? And building rapport is not what most people think. Most people think building rapport is finding something in common and relating to them in such a way. No, rapport is just simply asking questions and being genuinely and sincerely curious and interested in that person, right? How long have they lived in the area? Why did they move to this area? What kind of work do they do? How do they get into that work? That's a question. If you find out what kind of work someone does, and just say, I just out of curiosity, how did you get into that line of work? I mean, was it was it something you always want to do that as a kid, or did something happen, or how did you end up? I mean, it's fascinating, right? And everybody's work, by the way, is fascinating for some reason. Okay, in some way or another, everybody's work is fascinating, right? Everybody's got stories about stuff that they've done at work, or the reason they got into their work, and you just have to be good at figuring out. Asking those questions, right? But you have to be respectful of their time at the same time, and there's a whole way to do that, and this talk is not really about that. But sending a thank you note, sending just something as simple as sending a thank you note after a demo, whether it's a sale, whether it's a no sale, whether they gave you a bunch of introductions or not, send a dang thank you note, right? Not because you expect to get something in return, but because that's just the right way to be. You're sending out positive stuff into the universe. This positive stuff is going to come back. I call it karma. I don't know what else to call it, but Cutco karma. But send out the pause. Just build a reputation that you're awesome. Okay, and that's point number 4. It overlaps on top of those two, and that's be introducible. Right? You got to be a person that is introducible. And so if you get excited about not earning a scholarship, okay, but you get excited about the learning process of Cutco, and you explain to the customer how this learning process that you're part of in this Cutco business, is going to help you stand out and be better at blank someday. Okay, whatever your goal is, to be a doctor, to be an attorney, or to be a real estate investor, or whatever it is that you want to do, or a better parent. Okay, and learn how to let your curiosity fuel what you want to do. Okay, the way you ask questions. Okay, and then the 5th point is this. It's that ask for specific things that you want. Okay, when I learned this completely changed. Now, yeah, you need to learn your recommendation approach, change the word recommendation to introduction, or referral to introduction. But you want to ask for very specific things, okay? And you can do this all throughout the presentation. People who get the most recommendations and the best quality recommendations, they don't just wait till the end and then do the recommendation approach, okay, or the introduction approach, I guess I should say, right? It's something that permeates the entire presentation, right? Edson talked about it this morning. I'll kind of review on that just a little bit, but as I'm going through the presentation, I'm talking about the spatula spreader, for example. This is one example. When you talk about how it's really great for pie, you talk about how flexible it is, and it's really, really great for pie. So do you know how you take a nice, beautiful pie, and when you go to get that first piece of pie out, usually you have to use like a fork or a knife or something. And by the time you get it out, it doesn't look like a nice piece of pie. It's like it's a clump of really good tasting sweet stuff on a plate. Okay. Well, the spatula spreader allows you to get that first piece of pie out, and it actually looks like a piece of pie when you get it out because it's so flexible and it's got the edge on there. So I don't know if you're big into pie, but one of my things that's on my bucket list is to learn how to make great pies. Do you know anybody who makes like an amazing pie? Apple pie, blueberry pie, lemon meringue pie, my wife's favorite, coconut cream pie, right? And most people know somebody that makes great pie, right? Or somebody who's a great cook. And all you do is just say, do you know somebody? What's their specialty? Oh my gosh! Later on, when we get formally asked for the introductions, I'm gonna make sure you introduce me to Janice. Even if she doesn't want to see a Cutco appointment, I want to get that pie recipe. Okay? Do you see how you're being introducible? Just by being personal like that. You're not some salesperson there just to try to sell something, right? I think most people get beyond that, and they start to realize you're a kitchen consultant, but you're also there to enhance people's lives. And you doing great demos for friends of theirs they introduce you to is going to make them proud. Okay, I can tell you one thing. My daughter's on here. I have no problem telling you guys. We gave my daughter a lot of recommendations, a lot of introductions when she was brand new. In fact, I still do. And the reason I do is not just because I want her to do well and make money, but it's because when she goes and does those appointments, and those people I see them at a wedding, or I see them at church, or I see them at a Rotary Club meeting, or just around town, whatever, they are so excited to tell me how much fun the appointment was, and how happy they are that they got to see it, and how much they love their Cutco, and how professional Madison was. Because Madison has made herself introducible, right? And I want to, not just because she's my daughter. If she wasn't my daughter, she was a neighbor kid and she was the professional that she is, I would want to introduce her to people, okay? Does that make sense? Because she's gotten herself to be introducible. So once you're introducible and you're asking for those specifics, you ask for specific jobs. Like if you want to be an attorney, hey, do you know anybody who's in the law field? right? Or if you want to be in medical field, do you know who you know who's in the medical field? Okay. The one thing that I learned though was neighborhoods. When I learned how to ask for specific neighborhoods, right? There's two things you can ask for once you've asked for some specific things, and someone who really wants to help you win a scholarship, really wants to help you further your business. I would ask for specific neighborhoods. Like in Fallbrook, I would ask for Rolling Hills, right? I've got a couple of introductions out in Rolling Hills, but when I go out there, I want to try to spend the whole day out there. Who do you know who lives out in Rolling Hills, right? It's a nice community, big lots, big houses. Or Brook Hills, where when I first moved down here, where we live, and anybody who lives in Brook Hills can afford, plenty of Cutco if they want it. Even the neighborhood we live in, most people could afford. So you could ask for specific neighborhoods. When I was a rep and I learned that I could ask for people in Whispering Pines, because I got a couple of recommendations in there, introductions in there, and I made big sales in there, some of the bigger sales, because it was a little bit nicer area and people appreciated the quality. I was like, man, I wish I could get more recommendations in that area. And my manager said, well, do you ask for those? I was like, what are you talking about for this? He said, yeah, you just ask it. Who do you know who lives in Whispering Pines? And as soon as I started doing that, I started getting more and more recommendations in there. And then I like, oh my gosh, I started asking for this really nice neighborhood. It was about 40 minutes away, but there was a huge neighborhood where I played volleyball one night a week at this Church of Christ. And I got some introductions in there. And I was able to work like a whole month in just this one huge neighborhood. It was awesome. It's called Kingwood, and it was one of my most productive months of all. But you can ask for specific neighborhoods, or you can just ask for people with money. Now, you don't say, hey, Ms. Jones, who do you know who's got money? Who's rich? You don't just ask the question, but you ask in a more subtle way, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'll say, Ms. Jones, I'm really working hard to get this scholarship, and I get credit, just for doing these. But what I'd like to know is, of the people that you have here listed for the introductions, who on this list, if you were me, who would you see first? Knowing that I'm, trying to win this scholarship. What I mean by that is, who on this list would basically have the means to get a set if they wanted it. Okay, and you just do your fingers like this. Who would have the means to get a set if they wanted one, right? And they'll tell you, oh, these people, they buy everything, they love quality, they cook all the time. He's a doctor, she's an attorney, and they both are partners in their firms, whatever. And they'll tell you those people, and then of course maybe you'll sell more to them, maybe you won't, but you'll probably sell more because you're more excited to sell to those people because of how much you learned about the introduction before you started calling. Okay, so anyway, those are just some tips on how to get quality leads, how to qualified, high quality leads. Ask for the specific ones. Be introducible, right? And that has to do with who you are, okay, and how you can relate to adults. And guys, you learn this skill, it's gonna go so much farther than just selling more Cutco knives. Okay, that's really key. All right, so that will be all of that topic, and I'm gonna stop the recording and record the other topic.